Welcome to ARTWATCH, an enlightening foray into the lives of working artists. Come on in, step into our studio, and listen to something unique about the artistic development of some of our friends. I'm your host, Elisha. From volunteering to set up the PA system to Grammy-nominations, our guest today has traveled the world as a musician, audio engineer, and producer. We talked to him on location in his underground recording studio. Please welcome Rob Genadek. Rob, welcome to ARTWATCH.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Tell us about the space that we're in.
Well, we're at Uptown Sound Recording. This is my third studio. Full function, grand piano, Hammond organs, Wurlitzers, Rhodes, tons of instruments around, tons of things to play with. Small, not huge, but very manageable. And I've been here in this space since 2016.
Cool. Also subterranean.
Subterranean. This is a sub-basement. The building used to be, I think, an auto parts store or supply company. And this is, we're 2 floors below the surface right now. Quiet.
So I know you as a producer, live sound engineer, musician. Tell us about the work that you do.
So what I do is oddly super simple. I mean, I put in enough time and I have good skill over the tools that I use to make music with. But for me, the most interesting and important thing, and I had a conversation just recently with a friend of mine, Jeff Victor, who's an amazing keyboardist, is that both of us feel the same way, is that when we're doing the best work possible, it's not us that's doing it. It's my faculties and skill with the tools that are executing it, but all of the inspiration comes from somewhere else, and there are a lot of different ways you can phrase that, but for me, the simplest thing is that this all comes through me and I'm the facilitator that makes it happen. And I truly believe that music that comes from the soul touches the soul. So it's an interesting process because I don't actually think of, what does this need? Let me think of something. The music actually asks me what it needs. And I try to fulfill that, in the best way I can. So, that's kind of what makes me unique about what I do.
Sure.
Yeah.
How'd you find your start?
I was always involved with music from a young age, through high school, playing in jazz bands and different bands in high school. And I always seemed to be the guy that set the PA up or set the mics up because I had a natural aptitude towards that. So that basically moved into actually being the guy that recorded. And when I was playing in a band, I think I was in my 20s, we went in to record a demo at the studio, and I said to the owner, I said, hey, could we get a better rate if I engineer? And he said, sure, yeah. So he would pop in on us now and again. And we did this 4-song demo, and by the end of it, it was a small little 8-track studio. By the end of it, the guy said, hey, man, that sounds pretty good. You want a job? And I said, yeah. So that started, that was a place called Lake City. The guy's name is Les Wallstein. And so I just sort of hooked up with him, and we just sort of started walking this path together of me working out of his studio. And at one point I said, if we got a 16-track machine, we could get a lot more clients. So next thing you know, he's buying a 16-track machine. And a couple of years later, I was saying, if we had a 24-track machine, we could get a lot more clients. So, that's where he went with it, That's how I got started. I got a lucky break when I was working there at that studio. I ended up doing demos for one of the bands that I had worked with when I was younger doing live sound for. They came in. He had a record deal, Peter Himmelman. And we were just supposed to do demos. So they came into the studio and in 4 days did 4 or 5 days, did a whole record of demos. And they sent it off, we sent it off to the record label, and the record label was like, well, this is awesome. This is the record. At that point, they had hired a guy named Don Smith, who has done all sorts of people from Stevie Wonder, Eurythmics, Stevie Nicks, Tom Petty, like a whole bunch of big artists. And they hired him to mix it, and he wanted me to come down to Memphis, to Ardent Studios, because he liked the demos that I had done and I knew the tracks. So that was like my first real big break, was not only getting to do a major label record, but also meeting Don Smith, who kind of became a mentor for me.
You talked about Les, you talked about Don. Who else would you say are your first believers?
First believers, I think Peter Himmelman was certainly a believer. We ended up establishing a really nice working relationship. And it's great when you get into that situation with somebody, because the communication can get really to the point and short. Like, he can say something to me in 2 words, and it'll be a volume of stuff that he's saying, but I'll understand exactly what he's saying, and we can get to where we want to go very quickly. And I sent him a text the other day after he posted some record that we had done in the past. I definitely credit him with teaching me more about what I do than anybody else. Even Don, because, we were in the studio working together, being creative together all the time. And I mean, he's brilliant for sure. And a little of that rubbed off on me, I hope, at least.
So I know you've been a touring musician,
Mm-hmm.
live engineer, educator. Do you have a favorite moment?
I really liked being in Japan. That was really, really cool. First off, the Japanese, they're so good at what they do, and they take it very seriously. So when we played there, I played there with Carrie Noble, mixing front of house. And I'll tell you a short story. First day we get there, and all the gear is being brought into the first venue. And it's all rented backline. And we set up, and there's some changes in the mixing console from what the riders that we sent. So we do the first show, and it goes really, really well. And then we fly to the next day. We fly to the next venue, and overnight they sent trucks shipping all of the backline to it, except like some of it, which was too big. So we get to the next venue, and the drum kit is set up. The monitors are all set up. And the organ, it's a different Hammond organ and Leslie, because they're too heavy to move around. So the drummer, Rich Mercurio, sits behind the drum kit and says, "You guys, you're not going to believe this. I don't have to move a thing. This is perfect." And Rob Arthur, who's the keyboard player and also played acoustic guitar on a couple of tunes, he said, "Yeah, well, check this out. I always put my picks, first off, my acoustic guitar is right where it's supposed to be. And I always put my picks in this corner of the organ. This isn't the same organ, but my picks are in that corner of the organ. And all the monitors were perfect. All the mic heights were perfect. And I said to the guy, "How do you do this?" And he showed me this book with like all these Polaroid pictures in it. And he said, "Where did you get that?" And he said, "Well, the people at the last venue took all these notes with tape measures about heights and stuff like that and angles of monitors." And he said, "We do this so that we can do a good job. They did it so we could do a good job tonight." I mean, in the United States, you're lucky if your stuff gets there, and it's over in a dusty corner someplace. So then we're like doing the show, and the lighting guy there's a particular song where it drops down and there's spotlights on Carrie singing, and then all of a sudden big drum fill back in, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden the backlights on the drums as he's doing the fill, and then the lights come on, and I look over at the guy and I say, "What? How?" And he said the guy from the show the night before took notes for him and sent him the notes so he could do a good job. I mean, that's That's pretty amazing.
Entirely different crews.
Yeah, different crews, different venues, different everything, and they're so really into it, so very much into it. But I will say the coolest thing that ever happened to me was when I was touring Europe one time with Courtney Asmina, and we did a bunch of duo tours, which I love doing because the singing, I sang a lot in that group, in that duo, filling up a lot of the stuff for instruments that weren't there. And I think that there's a thing about the human soul that's an outlet for joy, is singing harmony with somebody else. It's really great. So we're at this place called Zenegat 13 in Mechelen. No, yeah, Mechelen in Brussels, or in Belgium. And we check into a hotel, we get ready to go, we go looking for this place. We'd been told that it's kind of hard to find. So we're driving around, we couldn't find the place. And it turns out we had to drive down one side of a canal, and then we had to cross a footbridge and carry our stuff down a little further to this bar. I don't know what you would call it. It was like a restaurant bar, but it had been there since like 1600s, 1400s, something very old, very small, not much bigger than this room for the listening period. We were just tucked over in the corner, and you don't use PA. So small. And people show up in Europe to listen to the music. And we started playing. I had a little hand drum, and she was playing an acoustic guitar, and we were just singing our hearts out. It chokes me up just thinking about it. It's such a great thing to be part of that to this day. So that's why I brought that up.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you found work, you found artistic passion, human connection all over the world through your artistry.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for Rob Genadek?
I'm getting older. So I'm thinking I don't want to be pushing myself at the pace I have for the last 40 years, I guess. So I'm looking at, slowing down, taking fewer gigs, but and it's hard to even say this because taking the gigs only I want, but it's like almost everything I do is something that I want to do. So I'm super fortunate in that way, but I want to rely less on music to pay for my way through this world, and try to do it more as something to lift me and lift other people. And I kind of want to focus more on golf. I'm a big golf guy. So I want to try to give lessons to people. And right now I coach at a high school, Breck High School, coach the girls' high school team. So I want to continue doing that. I want to play a little more golf and not work as hard and just, sort of try to enjoy the other parts of my life a little bit more. I don't think I'm ever not going to work. I don't want to not work because I love what I do. So it's just no stopping. It's just maybe a little less jam-packed.
So for our listeners who want to hear more of your work, maybe work here in Uptown Recording Studio,
Yeah.
where do they find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. Rob Genadek as one way, and Uptown Sound has a Facebook page. I am on Instagram. You can reach me through that or Messenger. I'm very bad at self-promotion. So there are a lot of people that don't even know who I am, that I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been nominated for 3 or 4 Grammys. My work has, and worked internationally for this long. So, that's the best way to try to get a hold of me. What else?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, close us off with a song recommendation from your studio.
God, there's so many. Courtney Asmina, I did a bunch of records with her. We did a cover record called Songs from the Open Road, which were songs that we did in concert, not all of them at one time, but they were in the rotation of, we do a couple of covers every night. So at one point, people kept asking, what record is that song on? And said, well, we didn't write that one, but, and eventually it got to the point where, all right, well, let's just record a record of all of those songs. And we did and put it out, and it was pretty well received. I mean, there's more. I mean, I can't even begin. Your record, I'm very, very happy with how that thing went.
Yeah, thank you. Coming out soon.
Yep, can't wait. It's got beautiful soul to it. I mean, the whole night, as I've said to you before, it was magical. So,
thank you.
Yeah, and I loved working on that, and I loved being able to put my heart and soul into it as an expressive element of what you did, because it was just a captivating night.
Yeah.
Just really.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Rob, thank you for being on ArtWatch.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to ArtWatch. If you enjoyed the show, please write a review, leave a tip at leaveatip.org, or if you can, support the production with a small monthly donation. Information on this, links to Rob's work, future versions of this show, as well as the video version of the podcast, can be found at artwatch.us. ArtWatch is made in partnership with the Arts Initiative. Located in the heart of Albert Lea, Minnesota's historic district, the FCAI is the go-to nonprofit for pioneering new shows and artistic concepts. This program was also made possible with generous support from the Minnesota State Arts Board, the Southeastern Minnesota Arts Council, and Operation Roundup. ArtWatch is a production of Inkfish Design Studio, executive producer Elisha Marin. Join us next month for ArtWatch 17, a conversation with musician Aaron Fabrini. I'm really looking forward to sharing that one with you. Thanks again for listening. Till next time, take care.